and we would literally have 600 to 700 people turn up every Thursday, and there'd be a queue a mile down the road. And at that point, we all the four of us were like, man, we got to quit our jobs. This is starting to become something.
Hey there, welcome back to the Mischief Movement podcast. I'm Zoe, your guide on this journey to shake up the status quo and design a life that truly makes you feel alive. If you've ever felt disconnected, stuck on autopilot, or trapped in a life that feels more like a treadmill than an adventure, you're in the right place. I know that change can feel scary, so let's turn down the fear and crank up the fierce as we transform your life from the inside out. Whether it's solo episodes packed with actionable advice or interviews with some absolute badass human beings who've dared to defy the norm by living life their way, we're here to inspire, activate, empower, and challenge you each week. My mission is simple: to help you reawaken your rebel spirit, break free from mediocrity, and design a life that's anything but dull. You only get one wild life, so what are you planning to do with yours? If you're ready to stop settling, start living boldly, and create a positive impact along the way, let's dive in and stir up some mischief together. Now buckle up and let's go. On today's episode of the Mischief Movement podcast, I'm joined by the one and only Anthony Murphy, also known as Murf, from the Beefy Boys, the award-winning burger legends with a rebellious edge from Herefordshire. Murf brings his infectious energy and love for bold flavours as we dive into their journey from a backyard barbecue crew to champions of the burger world. We talk mischief, hustle, and how to create a brand that makes people stop and say, I want a bite of that. It doesn't matter whether you want to start a pop-up, whether you're interested in opening a restaurant, whether you're a vegan who hates burgers, because I promise, as you'll find out here, this conversation is much less about how to serve up a great dish and much more about how to reawaken that rebellious spirit so you can live boldly, do what you love, and create a positive impact along the way. Well, this week I am joined by one of the co-founders of the Beefy Boys. So, Murf, it's lovely to have you with me. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me on. Yeah, it's a pleasure.
Would you like to tell everybody what your mischief is?
I'd say my personal mischief is probably the belief that rules that I don't agree with don't apply to me, or shouldn't ever be adhered to in any way. And it drives my wife mad because she loves to abide by the rules. And don't get me wrong, it's not like I go around breaking rules or laws or whatever indiscriminately. I'm not like that. And if I think something's justified, I will be like 100% I understand that rule. But sometimes, when you hear a rule or you hear something and you think, well, what's that about? I don't agree. I would just completely ignore it. And I think that's probably been one of the things which has got me, has led to good things in my life, and has led to bad things in my life. It can go both ways. But that's probably my mischief, I think, is.
Well, I think that's pretty awesome. Have you got any particular examples that you could share?
Probably loads. I can tell you where it kind of first emerged. It was when I was at school, and it was a terrible lesson to learn. I think about year 3 in secondary school, I realised I didn't have to do my homework anymore because I could talk my way out of it with all the teachers. And I quite quickly realised that I was really good at blagging stuff. I really enjoyed school and I had like lots of friends and stuff. I got pretty good grades in the end. But yeah, course I just wouldn't do it. And I was all like homework because I found out you didn't have to if you found a way of talking your way out of it or getting around it. And it was, in a way, it was a terrible lesson to learn because I wouldn't advise it, and I wouldn't tell my kids it. Do you know what I mean? And if they told me that, I'd be like, "What are you doing? That's ridiculous. You need to do your work." But to a certain extent, it did make me realise, oh, hang on, you can do a lot in this world, and it made me realise that a lot of the time, it didn't matter what you were saying as long as you said it confidently. And and what I find is, like, as long as you were confident in what you're saying, people would be like, "Yeah, he's right." And I don't mean telling lies and that, because one thing I am not, and it is a lie. I don't ever lie. I try and be as honest as I can all the time. But I find there was other ways of like, getting around not doing the homework and speaking to the teacher. And I find that confidence was a real asset. And if you were confident enough, people would be, yeah, he knows what he's on about.
I love that.
Yeah, well, I know so many people who suffer, really badly from imposter syndrome. And whenever I talk to them, I'm like, we all are imposters. And I'm trying to make them realize literally everybody has that feeling of I'm an imposter, and everyone's just pretending they know what's going on, because my belief is that the world is just absolute chaos, and it's just, all of us just trying to find our way throughout it. And it's like the whole world is like the illusion of sort of organization on top of what is ultimately chaos.
Yeah. And have you always had that kind of confidence?
No, not really. I was quite quiet as a kid, lived a lot in my imagination, did lots of drawing, loved films. I was never that sporty as a kid. I was always more into films and comics and stories and things that you could imagine, so I spent a lot of time sort of in my imagination as a kid. And it was only maybe as I got into my teenage years that I realised, oh, hang on, you can blag a lot, just by sort of talking your way into things or out of things. So no, it wasn't something I had from all my life, just something I kind of learned, I think.
But has this sense of, being able to blag things, as you say, like, have you taken that forward since?
Yeah. Well, so it kind of developed into at school into acting. And it kind of put me down that because I was quite confident, school pantos or whatever. And then I find that was like a really, really handy tool. It's almost everyone I know got into drama and acting and all that. They've always gone on to do like really good things.
Yeah.
And I think it's because, and not necessarily in that world of drama or theatre acting, more like whatever they went off to do, they did well, because I think it does give people a really good grounding in just how to talk to people and how to go about it and how to,
That's really interesting.
It gives you that confidence. Yeah. It's, and now with a restaurant, if we ever have somebody applying for like a front of house job or pretty much any job, if I see like, that they've done a bit of drama in there, to me, I'm always, oh, wow, that this person's going to have a bit of, something about them.
Oh, that's really interesting.
I mean, the other thing that it really taught me getting into that whole world of sort of, plays and stuff that we did when I was at school, because we did a lot of youth theatre stuff. And the youth theatre we had a really amazing lady called Estelle who taught me so much, who was our like sort of leader on that. She took the whole thing really seriously. So if there was a play, there's only one excuse, for not turning up, and it was like death. That was literally it. You could be ill as you want, but you had to turn up to get the show going on. And that instilled a really strong sort of work ethic in me and all the people who were there. And even like Christian, who's one of the other Beefy Boys, he like used to do all that stuff with me. And it does put you in that mindset of like the show must go on. And there's so many transferable skills from that world that you can take into whatever, career you get into.
Oh, I love that. So we've mentioned a couple of times the Beefy Boys, but for anybody who doesn't know, what is it?
So our tagline is it's a drunken barbecue that's really got out of hand. So it was about sort of 12, 13 years ago. Dan, who's a very close friend of mine, we've sort of known each other since we were like sort of late teens. He was having a barbecue and for his partner at the time. So he called me up. He'd always known I was a big fan of food, and he gave me a call and said, look, I'm having a barbecue. Do you want to give me a hand cooking it? And I said, yeah, man. But, if you're going to do it, let's not do a rubbish British barbecue, because at the time British barbecues were in general terrible. You know what I mean? So I said, if we're going to do it, let's do a proper man versus food, diners, drive-ins and dives sort of barbecue, because that was all on TV at the time and we've been watching it. So we were like, all right. So me and him watched a load of that and we downloaded it, got some stuff off the internet, bought a couple of cookbooks, and we made a load of stuff for our friends. And all of our friends were like, guys, this is brilliant. You should do something with it. And we're like, maybe or whatever. So we'd have a couple more barbecues. And I think we started looking at, maybe should we look at maybe doing a little pop-up sort of thing. So I think Dan's dad had this old barbecue that had been next to his shed for like 10 years and just out in the rain, and it was covered in rust. And so that was all we had because we didn't have any money to invest into it. So we got that.
Yeah.
Spoke to a couple of pubs in Hereford, and on a Monday or Tuesday night when they weren't busy, we'd set up a little barbecue in there. We'd do some burgers, and we'd literally sell like 5 burgers, 10 burgers. We, you know, I don't even think we'd break even half the time. You know, it'd be just a couple of our mates there. So we just did that, and this was like, you know, for a month, a couple of months or whatever, and it'd just be sporadic here and there. And then we were doing one of the barbecues around Dan's house, and a friend of ours called Christian, who we'd known for years as well, had been working for the BBC as a runner, and he'd been to this barbecue festival in Bristol called Grillstock, and he said, "Guys, you should enter it." And I was a bit like, oh, well, look, it sounds great. So what it was at this festival called Grillstock, they had all these barbecue teams competing, and there were people who've been doing it for years, and you had to present your best ribs, your best brisket, your best pulled pork, all that sort of stuff. I mean, one of the teams was from America, and they had these people who've been doing it for years. And so I said, look, it looks great, but we've only been doing this for a couple of months.
Yeah.
We don't really know what we're doing. So let us just have a couple of years learning our craft, and then we'll enter. And then Dan had a bottle of wine, and he was like, yeah, let's just do it. So he entered us straight away. So next time I saw him, Dan was like, I've entered us. I was like, all right. Okay.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, so Christian come along. At this point, my friend Lee, who at the time I was running a nightclub with. So at the time I was a DJ, Lee was a DJ. We were both in a band together.
Okay.
And we ran a nightclub. We've been doing that from the age of 18. So rewinding a little bit, me and Lee started running club. I started running the club night when I was 17. I hired a club for my 17th birthday, told him it was my 18th. And so we go,
blagging it again.
yeah. So, exactly. So I told him it was my 18th, it was my 17th. I was at art college, and I said to everyone, I said, well, look, I've got to fund this party, there's bands and that, so I need to charge people to come. So I charged everyone like £2 or something to come to this party. And I packed it out, and it was like, this nightclub was dead most night. And this Tuesday night was like, I think we'd had like 300 people in there, made like £600. And I was like 17. I was like, I thought I was a millionaire. And then the guy who ran the club was like, oh, do you want to start promoting nights here? And then I met Lee, who's now my long-term best friend, and me and him eventually just started running the club together. So we were running this sort of nightclub. I was sort of 17, so I wasn't even old enough to be in there. And I was like running this hip hop night there and stuff. Anyway, so fast forward years later. And so we had this barbecue thing. We're going to go off to grill. So I thought, yeah, okay, we'll get Lee involved because Dan's best friends with Lee as well. So it's myself, Lee, Dan, and Christian, and yeah, we barbecued for a couple of months. So we ended up going to this thing in Bristol. Now, because we're from Hereford, we knew obviously Hereford's surrounded by amazing beef. So we thought, right, if we're going to enter the competition, we need to make sure our burger is amazing because we're from Hereford and we're representing our county. So we spent ages getting the burger just right, and we didn't want to do anything fancy. We just wanted to make a real good, amazing, good quality cheeseburger. And when we got to the competition, people were sending up mad burgers. They were sending like a burger with a pineapple in it, and or one with a lobster coming out of it. And we were like, oh God, we've gone too simple here. We've just done a cheeseburger. So we made this cheeseburger, we sent it up, and then they announced the winners, and we won. And we were over the moon. We couldn't believe it. We were like, oh, we've won. And I think we won by quite a bit because we scored like 600 points. I think the next guys scored like 400, 450, something like that. So we did really, really well.
By a long way.
Yeah, and everybody's really impressed with the burger. And then after they announced the winners, they're like, oh, and the winner of the best burger category now gets entered into the World Burger Championships in Las Vegas.
Did you know about that?
No, not at all. We were like, what? And so we were like, okay. So like, and this was like, I don't know, this was like in the summer, and they were like, oh, right, yeah, you've got to go to Las Vegas now in November and represent the UK at the World Burger Championships. And we were like, what? So we were like, oh, brilliant. This will be a chance for like 4 lads to, go and have a free holiday in Las Vegas, come last in a burger competition and come home. So the only catch was we had to raise the money. They wouldn't pay for us to get there. When we got there, it was all going to be looked after, but we had to get to Las Vegas. We tried to set up like a Kickstarter sort of fund or whatever to be like, donate this money to go to Vegas. And everyone was kind of a bit like, I'm not paying for these 4 young lads to go over to Las Vegas and have a jolly, when I could be donating money to charity or to an actual worthy cause. So we didn't really raise any money. So then we went round speaking to local businesses, and luckily we spoke to Wye Valley Brewery, who were lovely about it. And we said, look, we really want to go. And I wouldn't be sat here talking to you now if it wasn't for those guys. So Wye Valley Brewery is like a local brewery in Hereford. And we spoke to them about it. And they said, look, we'll stump up the money to get you over there. Just can you include a bit of our drink in some videos when you're over there, or like in one of your recipes? We're like, yeah, of course, whatever you want. So they gave us the money, and so we got over to Las Vegas, and it was mad. And it was like they'd shut off like the main strip in Las Vegas, and it was filmed for American TV. They got all like outdoor kitchens and stuff. And there's like 50 of the best like restaurants and chefs in America. And there's this 4 lads from Hereford, just like, what are we doing here? What?
I love it.
How are we here? You know, and we weren't allowed to take anything. So back in the UK, obviously we had like really good meat from a good local butcher called Neil Powell. Great buns that we would got baked locally. But we couldn't take any of it with us because they're really tight on what you can take to America. We even tried speaking to Jesse Norman, who's our local MP, to see whether we could get a diplomatic parcel on the plane to get us over there. But there's no chance. We just couldn't make it work. So we had to find everything out there. So we thought, right, let's just try and find beef, which is as close to Hereford beef as we can. So it had to be grass-fed, dry-aged. So we've got to try and find some grass-fed cows. And we're in Vegas in the middle of a desert with like nothing but casinos and stuff. So we end up finding this really high-end butcher. And to get like the meat that we needed, to make 12 burgers cost us like $270 just to make 12 burgers because of the quality of the meat we needed to get.
Wow.
Couldn't find a decent baker. We tried. And then luckily we went to, have you ever been to Las Vegas? Have you ever been?
Not yet.
Been over there? I thought I would hate it. Because at the time I was and I'm still a little bit like, anti-capitalist, well, you know, all this sort of stuff. I got there and it's amazing. It is like, it's Disneyland for adults. It's phenomenal.
Brilliant.
It's so much fun. You got to go at least once. So Gordon Ramsay there, he literally has about 20 restaurants in Las Vegas. He's got like a steak restaurant, a fine dining restaurant. And one of them is a place called Burger. So we thought we'd go and try this Gordon Ramsay burger before the competition. It was really good and the bun was really, really good. And so we couldn't find a decent baker. So we thought, right, let's just go to Gordon Ramsay's restaurant, go in and try and blag our way to get some of their buns. So we went in and we were like, can we see Gordon? And they're like, Gordon's not here. What are you on about? Of course he's not here. He doesn't work here. We're like, oh, right, okay. Can we speak to the head chef? And the head chef was one of the ladies that had won Hell's Kitchen. So we'd seen her on TV. Yeah, no, yeah. Because when they win, then they get to manage one of his restaurants.
Yeah, yeah.
And she was absolutely lovely. And she was like, and we're like, we were like giving the sub, we're from Britain, like Gordon, and we need these buns, and we're doing a competition. And she was like, yeah, no worries. So she gave us these buns. They're the buns we actually end up using in the competition. So we got these Gordon Ramsay buns.
Oh my God, that's such a like just even thinking to go and do that blows my mind. You're like, God, you're so enterprising. That's brilliant. And wow, to find a chef that was actually really like nice and wanted to help. Like,
the thing was before that, when we were there, because so Wye Valley Brewery, like, we want you to make a video documentary of you guys being there. And we were like, okay, but we were adamant. We're like, look, we're going to come last. So this is going to be like the worst video ever. It'll be like, so we needed to fill it full of stuff. So we made this whole narrative about we were going to be chased by a hitman. So we got more of our friends. So 8 of us went in the end. We got one of our friends to come play this hitman. So it's got this whole crazy story because we thought it was going to be boring. We thought, we're literally going to come last. No one's going to want to watch this. So let's try and put a story behind it. And let's try and do loads of exciting things. So before we went, we would call places up and we'd be put on our poshest accent. We'd be like, hello there. My name's Anthony Murphy and I'm calling from the BBC. And we would like, I feel so bad because these Americans would be like, oh, hi, how's it going? And we'd like talk to them. And we'd be like, we're coming over. So when we got over there, we'd managed to set up all these things. So we got because we had no money. So we managed to hire the Segways, the Segways.
Yeah, yeah.
We told them we were making a documentary about burgers. And I think we don't think we lied. We kind of insinuated it was the BBC, but didn't actually clarify with it. So they gave us all this stuff, and we had a camera crew with us. We had this lad called Ed who came with us to film it. So it looked official. It was like, we're filming. We're from the group, we're British, and we just got so much free stuff. So we were given these Segways, and we're going around Las Vegas in them. We ended up going out into the desert and firing loads of machine guns and stuff with these guys because we told them we were doing it for a documentary. So we were literally in the middle of the Las Vegas desert with Uzis and AK-47s. It was absolutely bonkers. Yeah, and then we did the competition and we came second in the world. Just like that. And we made more noise and went madder than the guy who won because And we were just literally like, and in second place, because we had no idea. We did not think for 1 minute that we would do a tour. And so when we came second in the world, we went mental. We were absolutely ballistic.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
It was mad. And it was because financially, I'd always been awful. And even though me and Lee ran the nightclub, we never made any money. And like, we were always in debt. And like, literally, we had to do other jobs on the side to keep the nightclub going. It was a labour of love because we both love music, and it was lots of live music and DJs, and it was really providing a really good it was a good thing for the community. And at the time we used to argue like this should be funded because we were giving like local bands places to play and DJs, and it was a real hub for like artistic people, like Ellie Goulding used to come there and play because obviously she was from Hereford before she was famous and all that sort of stuff. And loads of guys went on to work in the music industry, used to be in that sort of world, but we never made any money. And so financially, it had always been a worry for me. Like, what am I going to do? We got no way of making a living. And interestingly, I remember walking away after become second. None of us could believe it. We're all in shock. And I kind of remember thinking, everything's going to be all right now, because no matter what, I can always say, oh yeah, well, we got the second best burger in the world. And I thought that there's always going to be a way to monetize that, to make some form of living off it. And I remember having a real, as I walked away, we were walking away from the stage after they announced it. It was Las Vegas Strip, and I was like, oh yeah, no, it's going to be all right now because I've got this. We've got this to work with.
Yeah.
It was mad. So then when we got back to the UK, we did like our first pop-up at the Barrels, which is one of the Wye Valley's pubs. And we literally had this old broken barbecue, and we were used to like 10 of our mates turning up. And so obviously we come second in the world. We've been posting about it on Facebook. So, and there'd been huge amounts of likes, thousands of people liking it and sharing it. And it was mad. It was really lovely to see while we were over there.
Do you know what? Everybody loves a good underdog story, don't they?
Yeah, totally. So many people rooting for us. And so when we got back, we did our first pop-up, and literally like just getting ready. We look up, it's 12 o'clock, and there's literally like 300 people like just turned up. And into the queue, like going down the pub, like, oh my God, and we can only cook one burger at a time on this barbecue. So there was a 3 hour wait for a burger.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So we took all the money that we had made from that. We were like, right, let's reinvest it. So let's buy another barbecue and do it.
Yeah.
And so we kept on doing that. And every time whatever money we took, we didn't really take money from it. We would just buy more stuff to do it quicker or to do more. And within about 6 months, we were doing every Thursday at a place called the Left Bank in Hereford, and we would literally have 600 to 700 people turn up every Thursday, and there'd be a queue a mile down the road. And
wow.
And at that point, we all the four of us were like, man, we got to quit our jobs. This is starting to become something. So we did, and we quit our jobs and started doing it full time. And we had an opportunity to open a restaurant. There was a development in Hereford where they'd rebuilt on the old cattle market in Hereford, and it got a load of flack from the locals. Like, we don't want it, blah blah blah. You're wrecking our city and that. So they'd had all that sort of bad press, and it's turned out it's been a great thing for the city. It's actually really rejuvenated. It's been really good. But there was one unit on the end that nobody wanted, and it was a little sort of awkward unit over 2 floors. And basically the landlord, who's a big company called British Land, I think they felt, we're getting a lot of flack from the locals here. This is just big change. It was like your Frankie and Benny's and your Wagamamas and all that sort of stuff. So they came to us and they said, well, you guys, we've heard about what you've done with the World Food Championships. We've seen your pop-ups. Would you like to have a look at this unit? And we were like, yeah, 100%. So we went and looked at it, and we had so many people saying to us, don't, what are you doing? You can't go there. That's a big like retail place. You're next to a cinema. The rent's going to be ridiculous. You'll be shut after a couple of months. You're independent, go down a back alley, go on the outskirts of town. And we were very arrogant, and we were like, no, we're going to do that. Because we were like, look, there's a reason why companies like Wagamamas and things pay to go next to a cinema, because it's the footfall. We had a brief conversation with the bank, and they were like, yeah, we'll lend you the money. We had no idea how much it would cost to do a restaurant. We thought, well, how much would it be? We plucked a figure out of thin air and thought, yeah, that sounds like that's what it would cost. Turns out it costed 4 times what we said it was going to cost to do. But we were like, yeah, it'll cost that. Yeah, so we're like, go and ask the bank, can we borrow that? Bank's like, yeah, fine, brilliant. So we go and we sign. And we're like, yeah, let's do it. So we get the lease, and September, and we're going to get the keys in November, and then we're going to try and open like January the 1st, just after Christmas it was. Or the day after Boxing Day, we're going to do like a soft launch day or whatever. Right? So we get it. We've got the keys. Brilliant. We ring the bank up. Can we get the money? The bank's like, no. And so it turns out the guy at the bank was really apologetic. He's like, look, he said, I'm from Hereford. I live here. I know that this is going to work. I've been to your pop-ups. I've seen how busy they are. Because he'd looked at our books and he was like, you guys are taking more in that one day a week than a lot of pubs in Hereford are taking in the entire week.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. But then he said he'd had to then send it off to London to like wherever to get this signed off. And they looked at our CV of like DJ, ex-runner for the BBC. And Christian was also working as a pig farmer. And then Danny was a gas engineer. And they were like, you guys can't run a restaurant. You don't know how to run a restaurant. We had our business plan. And they were like, you're never going to take what you're saying you're going to take on here. It's a no. So literally, we'd signed the lease. We had the keys or whatever. We were going to open. We're like, we've got no money. We can't do it. Got a designer in. Then we got the whammy of, well, it's not going to cost this. It's going to cost 4 times what you thought. And then we were all like, right. So then we all had to go and speak to our partners and be like, we're going to have to put our houses on the line here. And if this goes wrong, then we're going to be homeless. But luckily, they were all very accepting of that. And we spoke to all our friends, all our family, and we rang people up. We borrowed like £1,000 here, £500 there. Yeah. So then that was nerve-wracking in itself to think, well, actually, we owe all these people we know and love a lot of money now. And then the remainder, luckily, Kate, who's married to Lee, one of the Beefy Boys, and Kate, who'd been helping us with the pop-ups, because she's the only one of us that does have a hospitality background. She's Lee's wife, and she was born in. Her parents owned a hotel, so she grew up running a hotel basically.
Okay.
So she had a good.
So at least someone knows what they're doing.
She was she was the only one that knew what we did. But she took care of the front of house stuff, which was great because it meant we didn't have to worry about it. She knew what she was doing, and she could take care of the waiters and the waitresses, and we would just take care of the burgers, which is all we knew what to do. But luckily, her uncle knew some people in London who had pots of money that would lend it for, a short period of time, and then you'd have to pay it back. So we managed to get the funds together, open the restaurant, and lucky enough, in the moment we opened it, there was a queue out the door. And that's even true today, like sort of almost 9 years later, there's still a queue every day now. And now the restaurant, we've doubled it. We extended into the building next door. It started off just 80 covers, the Hereford one. It's 220 covers now. And now we've got one in Shrewsbury, one in Cheltenham, and we've just put an offering on a 4th one. We've got a food truck, and we've got a book coming out. And we've got so it's just kind of all sort of spiraled out of control.
It's all just gone out of control. Like this whole thing of Las Vegas completely went to your heads and turned your lives upside down for the better.
Yeah, definitely. It's a completely life-changing moment. And we do talk about it a bit like the butterfly. I don't know if you've ever seen it either, but obviously you know the concept, the butterfly effect. Yeah. But it is interesting when you look back at your life and there's certain things where you're like, if we hadn't done that one thing, then this wouldn't happen and this wouldn't happen. And it is like everything starts off like as a tiny little, it's like a snowball going down a hill. Do you know what I mean? And it's like,
for sure.
Literally, if Dan had rang me up and said, do you want to do this barbecue? I'd be like, nah, I'm busy. Do you know what I mean? Or do you know what I mean? Dan hadn't invented us into the Grillstock competition, or like we decided not to go to Vegas, or there's so many variables. If we change one of those things, our lives would be completely different to where they are now.
The fact is, like a good old boy band, being in a group, you've all actually got to be singing off the same song sheet at the end of the day. When you talk about having to raise funds from your family and friends and partners and everything, it would only have taken one of them to say, I'm out, this is not happening. And maybe things would have looked different. So
I've never thought about that, but it's surprising none of us did. Actually, because it's as much fun as it is, and it is a lot of fun. There's some real dark times. Do you know what I mean? Real times where like life was low. I mean, when we first opened the restaurant, I don't know what we were thinking. We had this really weird belief, and I don't know why. There's a concept called groupthink. When you're in a group and you get a stupid idea, but you're all behind it, so nobody really questions it. And the stupidest idea we ever had was we were under the impression that when we opened the restaurant, that we would just work, because it was 7 days a week it was open. So we thought, we'll just work from 9 in the morning until it shuts every day, right? And that was our plan. And then we got about 3 months into that, and we were like all on the edge of a nervous breakdown. We'd all lost about 2 or 3 stone in weight. It was a horrible existence. We were working about like 130 hours a week. I would get up in the morning, and my wife Jo would be asleep. I would get back at home, and my wife Jo would be asleep.
Poor Jo.
I know, yeah, and I would not get to see her. Do you know what I mean? And I would like, and then the thing that used to depress me the most, I used to go park in this car parking space, and like, I'd put like a day's parking in it, right? And every day I would like, I'd go to work, pay for my day's parking, work all day, get home at like midnight, go to sleep, be back at work, and my parking would still be valid from the day before. I hadn't even been, I'd been, the rest I'd had was within 24 hours, and I was back to work. Yeah. And so we did that for 3 months. Then we got to the point where we were like, this is unsustainable. And so then we had to really start actually thinking about it like a business, where it's like, we need more people. And we had some great staff from the start, and some of those guys are still with us now, and we couldn't have done it without them. And to be honest, as it's grown as a business, you realise that, when it's one thing and it's just you and you're just there in the kitchen with it, you can be in control of a lot of it. As it gets bigger, you have to rely on people, and you can't do it without people, and you can't do it without good people. So that's the one thing. And we are very, very fortunate that we do have lots of amazing people within the company that have allowed us to grow it to where it is now. So now we've got like 200 odd employees now, which is mad.
Wow, that is amazing. And crazy. Kudos to you guys for keeping it all together, even through the dark moments. But I mean, it sounds like you've had quite a fair amount of obstacles along the way, but you didn't succumb to them. You found creative ways to get around them.
I'd say that is definitely one of the things that I think one of our greatest strengths, I think, always has been, we've always been able to turn anything really negative into a positive. And I think COVID was probably the biggest example of that. So I remember, because I'm quite into politics and the news, so like I was like really aware of what was going on with COVID well before the guys were, because I was watching what was happening in Italy. Yeah. And I was seeing this stuff. And I remember, and I think a lot of people at work were like, oh, what's he on about? I was like, look, things are going to get a bit crap. So I remember like early March sort of thinking they need to like close the borders or something, because I was seeing what was happening around the world, like in China and Italy. I was like, this is going to come here. And then obviously it did. And it was a terrifying time to run a business, because like, so at the time we only had one restaurant. So I think we had about 50 employees at the time. And you've got rent to pay, you've got, your employees to pay, you've got all your bills coming in. And we were like, and then literally I remember Boris Johnson going on TV, so, and it was before they'd even uttered anything like lockdown. It's like, yeah, maybe don't go out. And it was like, well, hang on. Yeah, I agree. Probably people shouldn't go out, but we rely on people going out. And I remember that night we had like 100 bookings just cancel. Do you know what I mean? And all this sort of stuff. And it was a really horrible sort of time. So luckily the whole furlough thing happened. We went into lockdown. And then I remember after about sort of maybe 10 weeks of lockdown, we were all getting a bit sort of itchy and a bit like, oh, we want to do something. And obviously COVID was terrifying when it first hit in the lockdown. But then as things gradually go on, it was like, well, okay, well, it is obviously scary and horrible and terrible, but maybe it's not quite as scary as we thought. And perhaps can we look at opening again? And then the government started releasing guidelines on how you can do it. And like, we started speaking to some of the staff, and everyone was getting a bit bored by then. They were like, look, well, I wouldn't mind coming back and doing something. And so but we went down to work, me and the 4 lads, and we went down then. It was the middle of lockdown and everything, and we had a mask on, and we had to stay like, far apart. And we were like, right, can we knock our kitchen down and rebuild it with all of us 2 meters apart? And so we worked out a way of doing it, and we managed to be the first place to open in Hereford. And so we opened as a takeaway. Like, all our waiters and waitresses were like, look, come back. Can you drive? Those of you who can drive, we'll get you off furlough. We'll get you coming back, and you can come and drive, so taking some takeaways out or whatever, and we'll get the kitchen back up and going. And so that's what we did. So we reopened, and we thought, right, we'll open up as a takeaway and just see how it goes. And it went absolutely ballistic. It was like we were taking just as much money as when we were open as a restaurant.
Because by that point everybody's sick of living on pot noodles and actually wants a bit of normality and to treat themselves. And
that was it. No, it's exactly it. That everyone was, was so sick of being stuck at home. I think they thought, right, let's go and get a Beefy Boys. Let's order it as something to do. And we managed, and I think the fact, because we were an independent, because it was 4 of us who were just mates and we could just make decisions like that, we were able to open really quickly. Whereas the big chains like Nando's and Wagamama, they were still scratching their heads like 2 months later, about what they should do. And whereas we just did it. So yeah, we opened as a take, and it was absolutely flying. And it was actually lovely as well, because we got open kitchens in our restaurant, which is great. So you can see the customers, they can see in the kitchen, see what you're doing. It's lovely. But obviously you always have to behave, and you have to listen to music that's acceptable in a restaurant stuff. When we were in what we call COVID kitchen, we were able to do what we want. So we were like, one days we'd be like, right, what should we listen to today? Like, let's listen to all the Bond themes in a row, or like we actually listened to all of the Now albums from Now One all the way up to in order. Yeah, and it's a great thing to do. It was really like, that was really good fun. Or we'd play like big games, like so we'd shout across the kitchen to each other. We'd try and like name all 50 odd American states, and we'd try and do it while we were working. We had so much fun. It was lovely. And then we kind of used a lot of the opportunities that came from COVID. We sort of lent into it, because obviously it was a terrible thing that happened, but loads of restaurants were shutting. A load of the chain restaurants took it as an excuse to be like, all right, well, let's not bother reopening that place now we've shut it. So Frankie and Benny's next door to us in Hereford, that shut down. There was a Zizzy's restaurant in Shrewsbury that shut down, and we heard that they've gone. And then so we managed to find out who the landlord was, and we spoke to them. And I think the landlord was a private landlord, and I think was really worried that it was the end of the world and nobody was going to rent his restaurant. So we put in a real low offer, and he snapped our hand off. So we got a restaurant in Shrewsbury really cheap to open, when we came out of the pandemic. We spoke to a landlord in Hereford, because when we started coming out of the pandemic, and they're like, right, you can sit people in your restaurants, everyone had to sit, like 2 meters apart or whatever, right? So we realized we're only going to sit 20 people in our restaurants. We're like, look, if we open and we can only sit 20 people, we're going to go bust. But there's an empty restaurant next door. Can we just knock a hole in the wall and sit people in there? And the landlord was like, yeah, all right, yeah, do it. So we did. So we knocked a hole into this giant Frankie and Benny's next door, and we just let people sit in there. And so that way we could actually start, operating and starting selling what we needed to. And then I don't know if you remember, but that Christmas, the government brought in the tiers system. Do you remember tier 1, tier 2, tier 3? I don't know if you saw that. So basically, depending on the amount of COVID infections, you would go into different tiers, and those tiers would have different levels of social distancing and restrictions.
Yes, that's right, yeah.
There were 2 places in the UK that were tier 1, which basically meant, yeah, you're fine. And I think it's because Hereford's so small. So it was the Isle of Wight and Hereford were the 2 places in the UK at Christmas, tier 1. Now, all that happened was everywhere within about 2 hour radius of Hereford came to Hereford to do their Christmas shopping, right? It was like Piccadilly Circus. There had never seen so many people there, right? And we realised at that point, wow, we can fill this entire restaurant, because, we were doing it. Literally everybody got COVID within a week, and we had to shut down.
Oh, God.
But after that, we realised, man, we might want to keep this restaurant. So when we started coming out of the pandemic and opening back up, we realised, hang on, we can fill this one next door. So we struck a deal with the landlord, and we ended up keeping it. But that was just one way that we really learned, hang on, when you get these challenges, like lean into it, find what you can do. And we realised just everybody was panicking, all the landlords, so you could get amazing sort of deals if you needed them. So, yeah. I think any negative opportunity, first thing you should think is, right, how do I make this a positive one?
Yeah, and do you find that, being a sort of group of you are good at coming up with these kind of solutions? Or is it like one person has an idea and has to get all the others on board because they're not quite sure? Or are you sort of very much along the same thought lines?
I think generally we're all pretty cavalier, really. And sometimes there will be like someone like, oh, hang on, should we do that? But we are quite good at talking it through. And sometimes there's ideas that, not everyone does get behind, so you can't do them. But generally, we've all got quite a cavalier attitude. And if we can see, if we're like, well, there's an 80% chance, anything over 50%, it's like a 60% chance we're probably all going to get behind it and do it. And and we have, we've made stupid decisions and done wrong things in the past.
Who's the wildest out of you guys?
I'm probably the most impulsive, and it's probably me. I think I'm probably the most impulsive. Lee's probably the most cautious. Dan is pretty like chilled with stuff. And if you can convince him it's a good idea, he'll be like, yeah, let's do it. Christian's, I guess, he usually wants to get the sort of detail on it and stuff. I'm very much like, once I've got an idea, I'll just be like, yeah, but, and then once I know it's a good idea, I'll be like, right, we're doing this, boom, let's go. Do you know what I mean? And I like to move quite quickly with ideas while I'm still excited by them. I often find if you let an idea dwell too long, you'll go beyond the point of being interested in it anymore, and then it just won't get finished. You'll be
you lose the momentum, don't you?
Yeah, that's it. And like, and sometimes you have a great idea, and so you spend ages on it, like, you fall out of love with it, and you forget why you like the idea. So I usually do find if you've got an idea, just go with it. And I'm always one, once you've made a decision, it's always fine if you've made the wrong decision, you have to put your hands up and be like, look, that was wrong. I've changed my mind. I want to go with this. But what I can't stand is indecisiveness. And it's like, if you've made that decision, you've made it. Stop second guessing it. Just go and do it, right? And you may have to turn back around and be like, oh, that was a stupid decision. Make sure you put your hands up and be like, yes, that was wrong. Yeah. I think that's far better than making a decision and then questioning it constantly and then not doing it. Do you know what I mean?
I think that's probably also quite linked to the fact, what you're saying before about being pretty confident. It's like, well, if I'm going to decide on something, like, what is there to second guess?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, definitely. And I think you've always got to try and balance that out. And I try, obviously I always try to be self-aware as much as I can. And I think one of the things I always try and make myself is none of us are as sound as we think we are. Do you know what I mean? I think everyone's always the hero in their own story. Mm-hmm. But one thing I always try and think is like, well, there's probably lots of people that think that I'm a right, twat, for want of a better word. And I think if you're going to be confident with ideas and confident when making decisions, you also need to be very upfront about admitting when you're wrong. And it's fine to be brutally honest, but you've got to be brutally honest both ways. You've got to be brutally honest, you'll tell somebody when something isn't good, but you've got to be brutally honest when they do something that is really good. So if you're quick to criticize people, you have to be quick to praise people as well. Do you know what I mean? You've got to do it both ways.
Do you bring that sort of into your work culture as well? Because I don't know what roles you will have within the business, but by the sounds of it, the fact that you've still got staff there who started at the beginning, and you told me that you're surrounded by really great people, it gives me the impression that you must have kind of instilled a really nice work culture there as well.
I'd like to think so. I mean, it's hard work. It is hard work. Hospitality is, especially the guys in the kitchen. And front of house is really, really hard as well, for different reasons. Yeah. And we have got lots of staff that have been with us. You've got some people who have been with the only job they've ever had. They came with us when they were 17, and they're in their mid to late 20s now. So I do like to think we do create a nice working environment. And there's times when you get things wrong. Do you know what I mean? As a boss, and there's times where you make the wrong decisions, or times when you haven't trained people enough, or you haven't been there to support them enough. We try and do as much as we can for people, especially helping people with their mental health, getting people counselling. There was a very close friend of ours that worked with us. He was a school friend of ours as well, and sadly, he did take his own life, and that was quite early on. That was like maybe 2 or 3 years into us being open, and it had a huge impact on us. So we've always been very hot since on making sure that we're there for people. Do you know what I mean? And we provide the help that we can. So yeah, I do like to think that we do that as employers, but at the same time, we've grown as a business so much. Like our turnover is 10 times what it was like 4 years ago, and with that, just it's the increase in people, the increase, the amount of work, the amount of stuff going on. And so there's always stuff where we're learning at the same time. Do you know what I mean? How to do this. None of us have we've never had to run a business like this. We've never run a restaurant. We've never run a number of restaurants. Running one's hard enough, but now we're running 3, potentially 4, hopefully more. So, I think we do treat our staff well, but I'd say there's definitely times when we've made mistakes. Not so much any treating anyone badly, but things where well, perhaps in hindsight we could have been done more, or we could have,
Yeah.
you know, but you only learn that through doing it.
Yeah, for sure. And I think going from pop-up barbecues to having 4 restaurants, I mean, all credit to you guys, but that must have been so much work.
Yes.
And now it's bigger than probably you ever imagined.
Yeah.
Do you find that you can still achieve some sort of, I hate using the word balance, but you know, there's a big push towards people's well-being these days. And do you guys, as founders and co-creators of the restaurants, find that because you've built everything around it, it's very all-consuming, or have you found ways to kind of carve out that time for yourselves and make sure that there's still space for your lives outside the restaurants?
Yeah. Yes and no to that. I mean, it is all consuming. That is the only way to describe it. I think I sort of had to make peace with that about 3 or 4 years ago, because it is. I mean, if you came and spent if you saw us like on the week, you know, if I get like a day off, my phone is always going. There's always a problem. There's always thing, whatever. So it's very hard to get complete detachment from it. But I made my peace with that. Well, end of the day, it's our fault. It's our business. And it's not that if I was an employee, I think it would really grate me because I would not be able to escape it. But it's our thing that we've grown. And I just have to make peace with the fact that, yes, I won't get any peace from it. But we have managed to now at times find times for ourselves to have that time. But it kind of comes in waves. So it's like when you open a restaurant, that's it. You're done for you got 6 months where you're just going to be, because not only are you opening a new one, you've got the others to run at the same time, and they don't go away, and the problems that they bring don't go away. And then you've got to open another one, and opening a restaurant is like, for anyone who's ever done it out there, they will know how hard it is. It is just so hard, because it's not because you get into doing a restaurant. We get into a restaurant because we think, oh yeah, I like cooking a burger, and I'm quite good at cooking a burger. But it's like, okay, yeah, you're good at cooking a burger, but now are you good at writing risk assessments? Are you good at doing accounts?
I was going to ask you that, because you're not actually doing the cooking the burgers now, are you?
It's like, are you good at writing a HACCP? Oh, how's your HR? And it's like, I just want to cook a burger. That's literally what I wanted to do. Do you know what I mean? And sometimes, like, I turn to the guys down and it's like, well, we're doing having to do something, you know, which is not what we signed up for, and being like, man, all I wanted to do was do myself a burger. Do you know what I mean? I'm sat in mountains of sort of like filling in forms. So, you know,
it's got a bit out of hand, hasn't it, really?
It's got ridiculously out of hand. Yeah. But we have got into a place now where, it is pretty intense. Like, looking at just speaking to my wife now, I was like, well, next week I'm going to have to work 7 days out of 7. The week after I'm going to have to work 6. What I've found is always have a holiday booked, right? And that someone told me that a couple of years ago, and I cannot express how actually that is so life-changing. And it doesn't even have to be a good holiday. Even if you're going to, you know, Bangor or like wherever, it does not matter. As long as you know, especially if you've got a family or a partner or whatever, you know, just have some time booked where it's like, okay, I know things are terrible now, but in a couple of months, I've got a week off or 2 weeks off, and I'm going to be going and doing something nice. So I always try and make sure that I've got a holiday booked, and it works. Even if it's 12 months away, you know you've got it, and you know you've got it coming. And I find that really helps you get through some of the horrible times. I think as anybody that runs their own sort of business, a lot of the time it's when you have a load of terrible things happen at once. Do you know what I mean? And sometimes if it gets real bad, I will come home and say to Joseph, I've just got to lie in a dark room. And I literally will not sleep. I will just lie in a dark room until it's like sort of exercised from me, and then I'll sort of be all right.
Yeah.
But that only happens like 3 or 4 times a year. Maybe that I have to go and do that.
Oh. Well, if you weren't running your own restaurants and stuff, what do you think you'd be doing instead?
Well, I know what I would love to do. I don't know. I think what I was doing sort of like to make a living when we were doing the club was we were in a band, and we were lucky enough, me and another lad called Sam, we wrote all the music, and because we rap, but we were producers in the band as well. So we did a lot of music that did quite well with publishing. So we had a lot of songs that are on like TV or on like on a film or in adverts and stuff. So
wow.
yeah, it was cool. It was really cool. It was like not really a sustainable way to live, because it would be like, all of a sudden you get a check and it'd be like, oh, I got £2,000, and you wouldn't know about it. Do you know what I mean? And so, and when we were doing the band, a lot of that royalty stuff, we got signed to Fatboy Slim's publishing label, but none of that money came in until after we'd finished doing the band, because we toured the band for about 3 years. It was great. We were on Radio 1 and we got up and down the country in a tour bus, and loads of fun. I had an amazing time, Joe. Amazing lifestyle to lead.
I feel like that's a whole other podcast episode on its own.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. But that's
the
what.
music
That's what,
years, amazing.
Yeah. So then Lee was like the DJ in the band, and yeah, it was great to be on the radio and things, and then, but it was really unsustainable, and like we didn't really make any money, and then we were kind of like got sick of it after 3 years, because it felt like it was going nowhere. But then as soon as we kind of started winding it down, then we started getting these royalty checks. We're like, oh no, we're actually making money doing this. And then, but that allowed me to put a deposit down in my first house. And then I started doing lots of music teaching, like working with young people.
Okay.
And I did that parallel to the Beefy Boys for a long time, so I didn't want to give it up. And I only actually gave it up about a year and a half ago, just because I just did not have the time anymore. But I did it more because it was more rewarding. I was working with young people, some of them who hadn't had the best chances in life or the best backgrounds.
Yeah.
And it was such a rewarding job, and worked with some just such talented young kids. Do you know what I mean? There was times when you see it was annoying more than anything. You meet this like 14-year-old kid that's got like more talent than you'll ever have, and it's like, oh, but really inspiring. Some of them as well, like absolutely amazing kids that we work with. So I think if I wasn't doing the Beefy Boys, I'd probably be doing that still. If I wasn't as busy as I was now, I'd do that, because it was really, really rewarding. But what I would have loved to have done is, and I get to do a bit of it with the Beefy Boys, is direct, write and direct, like film sort of video stuff. And it's a big part of the Beefy Boys is our video content.
I've seen some of it, and I was going to ask you about that, because it's really good and it's very humorous. I think it does bring out your brand sort of personality. So I was wondering who was responsible for that.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that's me and Lee. We would love to do more of it. So, we love doing the video content. We're both like massive film fans, because we've got our own podcast as well that we do, more of an excuse, because obviously as you get older, it gets harder to hang around. So myself, Lee, Tarby, one of our friends, and Alan, one of our friends for years, we've got like an 80s movie podcast that we do sort of every week.
Amazing. Give me the name.
It's called VHS Showdown. And it's basically about 80s movies, but yeah, we love films, and the room I'm in now, I've got all my sort of film memorabilia. I've got my Ghostbusters proton pack, and
oh wow,
all my sort of I've got a whole wall of memorabilia stuff on there. So we've always been big into films, and so probably the most successful Beefy Boys film thing we've done is our Christmas trailer from last year, where if anyone's out there listening, go on our YouTube and have a look for the Beefy Boys Christmas advert. We did a spoof of John Lewis, and it kind of went viral. But yeah, we're really proud of it.
Is that the one that featured Joe? No,
Yes, Joe's in it. Yeah.
Okay, I did see that one.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
So we're very proud of that. And we do love our video stuff. And I think as the business grows, we're hoping that we can get more people in place to help with us with more of the day-to-day stuff. So perhaps me and him can get more time to do that stuff, because that's what me and him really... I love food, obviously, but the marketing side of it is what me and Lee really love doing.
Yeah, and probably plays to your sort of creative strengths as well.
Yeah, totally. I think that so many creative people, like whether it's through music or art or film, end up getting into food. And I think there's a real connection between the two, because obviously food is about being creative. It's all about creativity. It's about making something out of nothing. Yeah. And it's exactly the same whether you're making a bit of music, or whether you're drawing, or you're making a film, or you're making a bowl of pasta or whatever, or making a burger. You're making something from nothing. And then the other side of it as well is, I think, fundamentally, usually creative people or people who make food, you tend to want to please people. You want to make people happy. You want to make, do you know what I mean? That's why you're doing it. And so I like making food because, it's a way of like enjoying nice food, but then also making other people happy to be like, oh, eat this nice thing,
Yeah. I did a podcast with a guy who's a chocolatier, and he does a lot of chocolate parties. He's called Ollie Dunn, and he was saying exactly the same thing. Like, chocolate for him is his vehicle for creating connection with people. And it sounds like that's a kind of similar way of thinking.
I think so, yeah. And it is that thing, just wanting to bring some happiness to people, because life, there's so much horrible stuff that happens in the world that it's like, well, why add to that? You can just, if you in some small way you can make people happy through food or through music or through whatever, then that seems like a real worthwhile thing to do.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, one of the videos that I was watching of you guys involved having a load of scouts round, and you were like going through the burger making with them, and I was like, oh, I love that, because it just strikes me as wanting to really look after your local community, and that nurturing thing that you're talking about with your young students is also present in what you're doing now.
No, definitely, because we've always wanted to make sure, because we were an independent restaurant, we are, even though we got like 4 or whatever, we've always wanted to do what chains don't do, or what, when they do it's kind of corporate and a bit icky and a bit, so we wanted to get involved with the local community whenever we can. And also we love doing things with kids, because kids are fundamentally hilarious. Do you know what I mean? And so we did, during lockdown, actually, another video, which is quite a funny one to watch, we got kids to design burgers. So because we knew the kids would be at home bored, we set out a challenge, right? All you kids at home, design some burgers and send them in, and we'll pick the best one and win a competition. And we had such amazing, and then, kids aren't constrained by the boringness of or mundaneness of reality that we are. Kids will do, their brains can go wherever. So some of the burgers that we were getting sent were like, oh my God, these are insane. These are like absolutely mad. So we're like, let's make them and let's eat them, right? So we did a whole thing where we made these kids' burgers exactly as they had drawn them, and there was mental ones. There was like, one kid wanted everything deep fried, the lettuce, the bun, deep fried everything. So we did it and we ate them all. And there was one kid's burger had, like, bless her, she had like chocolate sauce in it. She had gherkins in it, olives. It was like she put like the worst things she could imagine going together into his burger, and we had to eat it. And like Lee, it actually made him sick. That burger, he was physically sick.
Were there any burgers that actually made the menu at the end of the day? You were like, oh my God, this is actually really good.
Yeah, well, that was it. We said we picked one and put it on the menu. There was one which was in a donut that was actually quite nice with ketchup. And there was another one that was, and this was mad, and it was a whole camembert. Like, so you imagine a whole camembert, right? Baked, put in a burger. But of course, it was delicious, incredibly unhealthy. But yeah, there were some that were all right, but there were some that were absolutely mental. But that was good fun, and hopefully, the kids really enjoyed it as well. Do you know what I mean? And that's really good.
Well, I think, it's just another example of how you guys bring fun to what you do, and I think that's one of the things. Obviously, it's about the food, but I think a lot of your appeal as a brand is also this sense of fun, and that's what you convey through your videos and when you're sort of getting involved with the community and bringing people into your sort of world in a way. It's just really fun to watch. And now you're bringing that into your own cookbook, aren't you?
Yes, yeah. So, so we had a really mad year last year. Like 2023 was just so nuts for us. We opened Cheltenham, which was our 3rd restaurant. In opening that, we got contacted by Tom Kerridge, who's a very well-known British chef. And he was making a TV program where he was following different people doing stuff, and they wanted to follow us opening Cheltenham, and so that was mad. So, and we had to film all that and not talk about it. So until it came out, and then we won the National Burger Awards. So we'd never entered it. We'd done World Championships, but never entered the UK ones. And we entered it, and we won. We did the double. We're the only people to ever have done it. We won Burger of the Year and Burger Chef of the Year in one go, and that was mad.
Congratulations!
Thank you very much. And then we got on Saturday Kitchen as well, and then the Tom Kerridge thing came out, and we wanted to do a book for ages, and because my thing's always just go and do it yourself, right? Just go and don't wait for people, just go and do it. So my wife's a graphic designer, she does our graphics. We've got a great photographer called Pete who does amazing photos for us. And I was like, well, let's just make like 12 pages from a book. as if we were going to make a cookbook. So we just made 12 pages, right? How exactly we would do it. And then just sent them off. So sent them off to all these publishers. And a little bit. Obviously, the thing went on TV with Tom Kerridge, and then they're all like, "Oh, yeah, can we have a meeting now?" Met loads of them, and there's a couple of them that really got it and understood it. And one specifically, the one we went with, was Quadrille, completely understood. They loved the pitch. They loved the pages we'd done, and they said they very rarely ever do this, but they said, "We love it so much, we'll just let you do your thing. Get your wife to design it, get your photographer, you write it, we'll give you an editor to work with, who will help you with make sure the spelling and make sure it's all right and you don't go too off piece and you keep it on track. But you guys have complete creative control," because they loved what the pit and they understood it. And they said they hardly ever do that. And that was amazing. So at the time, it was like September. No, it was coming near the end of August. The Tom Kerridge thing was on. I think we signed the book deal by beginning of September. And I thought, I'm going to have 6 months to put this, magnus opus together. And they were like, I only got 6 weeks because we need it out by Christmas this year. And I know it has to go to print in March. So okay. And so luckily the guys, like the rest of the Beefy Boys, sort of rang and was like, right, we've got to write this book. The only way I can do it is if this is all I have to do for 6 weeks. And the guys were like, that's fine. And they're like, we'll look after everything. You go and do that. So I couldn't have done it without them. So basically I then got 6 weeks to go, and I was at home and I just literally writing, cooking burgers. I would eat burgers all day, and it sounds great, but it was terrible. When I finished writing the book, I just ate salad for a month.
Imagine.
Yeah, because things obviously I've got all these recipes, but a lot of the recipes are this is how to make it for 100 people or 200 people. Now I've got to show you a recipe of how to do it for 3 or 4. It's very different, and come up with new ones.
Yeah. So
dug down 6 weeks, got it done, and then Jo designed it. She's done an amazing job. It looks incredible. We got an illustrator called Russell, who we went to school with, who's done videos for the Idols, the band, and he's done stuff for H&M and that. He's an amazing illustrator. He does all our drawings. He's done loads of stuff for it, and the book's just come out way better than we even thought it would. It's so colourful, and we wanted to make it a bit rebellious. So it's the whole thing is we like our style with it to be a little bit punky in a way.
Yeah.
So it's got those bright colours and a bit sort of DIY, and it's a bit sort of rough around the edges, because we find some people get a bit pretentious with burgers, and we're like, oh, come on, it's a burger. Do you know what I mean? It wants to be dirty and ridiculous, and so the book is dirty and ridiculous, and it's a lot and all the photos are just sheer burger porn. Do you know what I mean? It's dripping with cheese and sauce, and it's all disgusting, but it's what we wanted, and so we're really, really pleased with it. But anyway, it's going to be in Waterstones, and it's being released in the UK, the US, and Australia. I'm really, really excited about it coming out.
Oh, that's phenomenal. And the thing I love about that is, again, you haven't read a book before, you have the idea, and you just I'm going to create a few pages and send them off. What's the worst that can happen?
Yeah, exactly.
Which is the same sort of mentality of, well, we won this barbecue burger competition. Why don't we just give a restaurant a go? And it's probably that attitude that has really kind of got you where you are. But it's brilliant.
You just got to do it, because so many people put barriers in the way.
Exactly.
And there's lots of parallels, a little bit with the band that we did, because with that, we would just record things to whatever level we could. Literally one microphone attached to a computer, and it was all rough and so on. But we would just do it and put it out there. Not really. I think anybody, no matter what it is you're doing, don't put barriers that are going to stop you from doing it. Just do it to whatever level you can, right? So if you want to do whatever, and it's not the finished product, it's not going to be as great as you wish it would be, and it's going to be a bit rough around the edges, it doesn't matter. Just do it. It's more important you get it out there, because your next one will be 5% better, and the next one will be 5% better than that, and then whatever you release now, or whether it's food or music or a product you've made or a pop-up you're doing, it's not going to be what it is going to be in 5 years. It's the beginning of it. So just go and do it. Because so many people that I know or speak to, they've got an idea, I want to do this, but I can't do it because I haven't got that. And I just feel just shut up, just do it. Just do it. And it will be a bit rubbish. But it doesn't matter, because you've started that journey. And every time you do it, it will get better and better and better and better till it turns out to be what you want to be. And I think too many people worry about having the finished thing, straight away. And so it's not going to be.
Do you think you could write another book after this one and just call it, Life According to Beefy Boys? with all these sort of lessons in, because I think you've got a lot to say about this.
Maybe.
In your punk style, your punk rebellious style would be an amazing book as like a bit of a here's your life manifesto.
Well, the book's a bit like that because it's a book about burgers, but it also charts our story in it as well. So it's like, it talks about how, because I think our story is kind of what's interesting about us, really. And so it kind of like, it does follow that. And so I tried to write it as a bit of like, if you are somebody who's interested in starting a food pop-up, you know, I've got a bit of advice in there about how to do it. And I was, say stuff like, just go and blame me. Because I mean, the first pop-up we did, we would have broken so many laws, not knowingly. But we were just like, let's go and start a food business. Didn't do any research into what we actually had to do or the qualifications we would need to do it. But it started us on the journey, to finding out. So, yeah, I think there's a bit of that in the book already, really, maybe. And, yeah, we'd love to do another one. I think obviously it have to be food related. But, yeah, we'll see.
Amazing. Well, listen, I have really enjoyed getting to know you and getting to know the brand. I can't wait to come to the UK in the summer and see if I can get up to one of your restaurants, because
let us know.
I really want to experience one of these burgers for myself.
Yeah, do it. And obviously we've got the restaurants, but we're at loads of food festivals and things like that. So yeah, whenever you're over, drop me an email, and it'd be lovely to see you.
That would be amazing. Where can people find you on the socials?
Oh God, we're on all of them. So we're on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook. It's always the Beefy Boys if you go on there. We're on the TikTok, as I like to pretend I don't understand. Well, I don't understand it, to be honest, but we are on TikTok as well.
You don't understand it, but I bet you're doing it. You are, yeah.
Yeah, no, we're doing it. We're doing it. But it's interesting because like me and Lee, because like we're both like in our sort of early 40s now, because we've been doing it for quite a while. So we are, obviously we know we've grown up with YouTube and Facebook, and we know that. But it's interesting how something like TikTok, I'm starting to feel like my mother in the fact I look at it and like, what is this? I have no clue what's going on here. And so actually we've got Lee, he's got two nieces that are like sort of 18. We've just got them to do the TikTok, and they're doing a far better job than me and him do, because it's all about these trending things that we just don't comprehend. And yeah. Get young people to do it. They're way better. Right. And then obviously we've got the restaurants. So there's lots of places people can catch us. And we do DIY boxes, sort of nationwide ones that we can sort of send out as well.
Amazing. So. Oh, amazing. So I can have a go myself then when I'm back.
Yeah. Yes. So just jump online. We'll send you all the stuff you need to make it all.
Brilliant. I look forward to seeing the book come out. And
thank you.
And the next restaurants or the next project, because I feel like whatever you turn your hands to, it's going to be cool. So I'll wait to see what happens next. Yeah,
definitely. Me too. But keep an eye out. I'm sure we've got some things hopefully bubbling away. So thank you for having us on, Zoe. It's been really good fun.
Welcome.
Cool.
It was a long one this week, but I hope you'll agree, absolutely worth it for just the sheer amount of value in this episode. Here we go then with my little rebellious recap. So 1, confidence is the difference between people buying into what you're saying or doing or not doing it. So show up with as much belief in your message as you possibly can. 2, so many people suffer from what is called imposter syndrome. So try to remember that it's not just you. We're all just trying to figure out our way through a total world of chaos. 3, when you're up against the clock or out of your depth in a problem, think creatively. Don't be afraid to ask for help from unlikely people, because they may just surprise you and lend a hand. Learn to ask for what you want. 4, believe in your crazy idea and back it with all your might, so that even when you're getting no's left, right and centre, you don't let them stop you. 5, if you're getting your head down and going all in on your big dream, don't overlook the need to rest before you burn out. 6, surround yourself with good people. Start with those people who will champion you and your ideas, but as soon as you're on your way, invest in the help that's going to keep you afloat. 7, find the ways to add fun to your struggles. Add music, bring people together, create new products, services or offerings. 8, within every challenge, there is a gift or an opportunity to learn something. So lean into it and work out what you can do to turn things around. 9, if you get an idea and it excites you, move quickly and don't dwell on it too long. Otherwise, you'll lose interest and never finish it. 10, book the holiday. Don't wait for the right time to fit in a break. Book the time off first and fit life around it so you have that moment to look forward to. 11. Don't wait for someone else to get your idea going. Take the bull by the horns and just do it. And number 12, don't put barriers up that are going to stop you from whatever it is you want to do. Just do it at whatever level you can. It's more important to get your idea out there than get it perfect. That's a wrap on another episode of the Mischief Movement podcast. If today's content stirred something in you, let's keep in touch on Instagram or connect with me on LinkedIn. You can even click the link in the show notes to sign up to my Mischief Mail newsletter, where you'll get exclusive insights on upcoming episodes and your chance to submit questions to future guests. But shh, don't tell anyone, it's our secret. For more info on ways to work with me and some fun free resources, check out the website themischiefmovement.com. Until next time, stay bold, stay rebellious, and of course, keep making mischief.